Hello, Visions, and welcome to this session of the Curriculum Fair. I am joined by Keith from Beyond the Page, who will be sharing about their language arts program. So, Keith, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks so much. So my name is Keith Howe, and my wife Kim and I founded Beyond the Page, and it's been our life's work for the last 21 years. Hard to believe it's been that long. It seems like just yesterday that we got started, but we care deeply about education, about helping kids learn to think critically, and helping parents to instill that in their children as well. So really excited to be working closely with Visions again this year to bring our language arts program to more students. What I'm going to do today is walk through our language arts program, and it's going to be, if you're not familiar with it yet, it's going to be quite different from what you probably are used to with the language arts program. So I'll go through some of our guiding principles, explain how it's structured, and then also explain how it evolves over time, so you can see sort of the progression from K through the middle school years. After we go through that, we're going to look at three key areas. We'll look at sort of a deep dive on reading, writing, and spelling. And then we'll just wrap up with some practical tips for parents and teachers who are working using our curriculum in a distance learning environment. First of all, language arts we see as a really kind of an umbrella term. It's going to include writing and reading and literature, story elements, grammar, figurative language, spelling, research skills. And our program is designed to cover all of those in a very comprehensive way. What we often see, especially in early elementary years, is a more narrow focus on sort of grammar, reading, and spelling. And we like to take a little bit of a different approach. So, what we want students to do, even at a very young age, is to start analyzing literature, exploring figurative language, building those research skills. And we start all of this early. And these are skills that are going to really help them out throughout their academic years. Um, Several years ago, there was and it was probably over a decade ago now. There was an earthquake off the coast of Japan, off the coast of Fukushima, and it triggered a devastating tidal wave. And there was a parent who was a Beyond the Page parent, and her fifth grade daughter the year before had used Beyond the Page. And she asked her what she remembered about Japan from her studies. And at first, when she told this story to us, she said her daughter said, I don't remember, I don't know anything about Japan. And but earlier that at the previous year, she had been going through one of our literature units, Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes, as they studied Asia. And then she stopped and she's like, wait a minute, isn't that the country where Sadako is from? And from there, she started recalling customs and foods and religious traditions, all these events that she had learned through the story that she read. So, facts and figures, it seems, are very easy to forget, but stories are much easier to remember. And that is an idea that shapes one of our core principles, and that is that children learn through story. History is made up of real people with real experiences. Science is an ongoing story that we're still uncovering, and language arts is just far more engaging and far more memorable when you can learn it through story. This is why Beyond the Page is a literature-based program. We build our teaching around literature and story, and it's not just something that students read at the end of a lesson. This is something that's woven through the core of the curriculum. The lessons and the activities, they grow out of the books themselves, and this helps students to dig deeper, think more deeply, and also to stay engaged in their learning. And one of the things that really sets our language arts program apart really is the quality of the literature that students read throughout the year. Students read every single day. Over the course of a typical year, they're going to read at least 9 novels. There'll be also a range of poetry and biography, short stories, and nonfiction as well. And what we try to do is aim for a balanced mix of classic works and also more recent award-winning titles as well. The way that our language arts program is structured, it varies over the years. So in the early years, this is going to be early elementary. So we use age ranges. I sort of put the typical grades that sort of line up with that. So if I say age 5 to 7, I'm just referring to what would normally be considered first grade. The in the age 4 to 5 through age 6 to 8, so K through 2. Our language arts program is actually integrated with our science and social studies program. So it's you'll do one lesson, and that one lesson will cover all of the language arts and the science and social studies in a single cohesive lesson, really helping kids to draw those connections between the subjects and not seeing all the subjects as just isolated different things, but really teaching them to think cohesively about all of them. Um, the language arts that is included in those lessons includes everything in language arts except for reading. And we provide a separate reading program that goes along with each of those levels as well. And you'll see more of those details as we get into it. In the middle elementary, so age 7 to 9 and 8 to 10, so we're looking at third to fourth grade here. This is where we change the structure of our language arts program, and this continues all the way through middle school, where the language arts program is built around literature units. So typically it will be a novel unit, but there's also units on poetry, nonfiction. There's a biography every year as well. So this is where students will be reading the nine novels each year, plus some other selections of books as well. The curriculum is written around the books. So as they go through and they read these books, they're going to be the lessons are all built around the book. So when you're learning your grammar, you're going to be using examples from the books. When you do your writing assignments, your writing assignment is going to be about characters and plots and stories that you're already invested and interested in. So really helping kids to draw those connections, and then also to be more engaged in what they're learning because they really care about it. In the late elementary, so beginning around fifth grade, and again, this continues all the way through middle school, those literature units are going to be student directed. And we'll look at more details of that later, but this is going to be something where students will be able to guide themselves through the lessons with your support. And we'll see more details of that in a second, but we do always assume that a parent is there and able to help as they go through the lessons. In the lower elementary levels, students mainly work with picture books. But even with these simpler books, we still have very high expectations for what it is they should be learning and teaching them to think critically. So one example here that I'll show you is in our age 6 to 8 levels. Again, this is like second grade typically. We ask students to take what they learn about strong storytelling and apply it in their own writing. So this example is from Cinderella stories from around the world. And as the students read these stories, we ask them to identify the common plot points and the story elements across 3 different versions of the story. Across those stories, students begin to notice very clear patterns. So Cinderella tales typically include a hero or heroine. There's some form of magical help. There's a villain, a moment where they have to prove their identity, and then also a connection to royalty. And of course, there's always a happily ever after as well. So as they're going through these stories, we ask students to compare them. And so we look closely at the stories and look at the similarities and the differences, the setting. We ask them in this case to look at the setting and find similarities and differences between those settings. After they do that, we have them look at themes, myths, and legends. And there's a few lessons on this, and students read a wide range of fables and myths introduced to different styles of poetry. And then you're going to see something that we do over and over in our curriculum. And this is sort of a guiding principle that guides our curriculum design. First, you learn about something, and then you do it. And we don't just read Cinderella stories and we don't stop at identifying the elements. We have students take what they've learned and then use it to create their own story. And you're going to see that pattern just consistently as you work through Beyond the Page curriculum. For students that need more support, we provide these graphic organizers and they guide them step by step through the process. And we also provide clear rubrics for parents as well, so you can evaluate your child's work consistently. They're going to know ahead of time what they're going to be graded on, how they're going to be evaluated, and then you'll have those rubrics to help evaluate that when they're finished. Beginning in the 7 to 9 level, so usually around the third grade, students will start reading chapter books. And this really marks a key inflection point in our curriculum. So this is where kids go from, before this, they're learning to read and it's a challenge for them. And now they're going to start reading to learn instead of learning to read. Um, the literature units are typically built around a novel study. And so over the course of 12 units, students are going to cover all areas of language arts. This is going to include the grammar, writing, story elements, vocabulary, figurative language. Everything is included in here. The structure helps to keep kids engaged and involved in their learning. I've seen this play out in a very real way with my son, Jaden. He's now 24, and he's always been what I would consider to be a strong writer. He has great ideas, very organized. He's able to tell very interesting stories. But there was one problem is that he didn't like writing, even though he was good at it. He just didn't enjoy it. And so as a homeschooler, he would avoid it whenever he could. And our language arts units didn't suddenly make him love writing, but they did make it something that he was willing to do because it was interesting, meaningful, and relevant, writing about something that he was interested in. Instead of responding to just random prompts on topics he didn't care about, he was writing about characters and events he was already invested in. And that connection really did make a difference in his studies. The work mattered to him, and I really think that his writing improved because of it. A few key things to note about how our literature units are structured. First, each 3-week unit focuses on a specific story element. So we pick something like plot or character, point of view, setting, and as students read the novel, they're analyzing how the author uses that element to shape the story. We choose books where the element really stands out. For example, in Morning Girl, it's a story that alternates between the perspectives of the main character and her brother. And as students study how the point of view affects storytelling, there's another novel called The Key, which we'll look at in a second as well, a little more deeply. Both of the main characters in this book, they really change significantly over time. And what students do is they track those changes chapter by chapter to see how character development drives a story. Another main element of our literature units is that each unit includes one major writing assignment. In the 7 to 9 level, this is going to be something like a single paragraph that they're going to write based on something happening in the book. In following years, students move on to writing multiple paragraphs on a topic. And by the age 9 to 11 level, they're writing full essays every 3 weeks. So we also vary the types of writing that students do. So in addition to paragraphs and essays, they also learn to write letters and short stories and poetry, depending on which unit they're working through. Another element that you'll see in our literature units is that if you're going to use our science and social studies alongside the language arts, we connect our literature units to the science or social studies thematically. So if students are studying weather and science, the novel will include weather as a key part of the plot. Or if they're studying civil rights in social studies, the book is going to center on people living through that time and how it affected them. This is going to help students to see connections across subjects and really deepen their understanding. The sort of a daily overview of the curriculum. Students begin each day in language arts reading a chapter or two from a novel and then responding to both written and verbal questions. Some of these questions are going to check reading comprehension, but we also want students to do more than just recall facts. We want them to think deeply about what they're reading. To support this, many of the questions are going to go beyond what can be directly verified in the text. So we're going to ask questions like, why do you think this happened? Or what would you have done? Or what do you think is going to happen as a result of this? So these are questions that are going to push students to think critically and then also to engage more fully with the text. After their daily reading, students are going to spend about 45 to 60 minutes working through activities that are connected to the text. And these activities ask them to analyze story elements, examine an author's voice and style. They're going to build their vocabulary that comes from the reading, identifying and interpreting figurative language. They're also going to complete original writing assignments that reinforce grammar and writing skills. And this work is rigorous, but we also make a strong effort to keep it engaging and enjoyable. So let's take a closer look at a few sample lessons, and you can see what a typical day is going to look like. Um, this is going to be sort of more of like a day in the life view of the program. So just sort of picking out one day. This first lesson is from the very first week of our age 7 to 9 third grade level. And the literature unit is built around a book called Tornado. In this book, a dog shows up on a farm following a tornado. In this lesson, we introduce students to structured paragraph writing. And when we do so, we're also sneaking in one of the 6 traits of writing. In this case, we're going to be having kids work on word choice. You'll also notice a question called a section called Questions to Explore. And this highlights an important element of our curriculum. One of our key goals, and I feel like this is something that really separates a good distance learning curriculum from a curriculum that's written for teachers in a classroom, is that we want to enable parents that don't have any educational training to utilize sound pedagogy without even knowing they are doing it. So these questions will help to clarify the lesson objectives and guide the parents' focus as they work through the lesson with their child. Um, the um, the unit review sheet so that section is followed up by facts and definitions. And these are the facts that students are expected to learn as they work through the unit. And each of these units includes a summary review sheet that students can use to revisit and reinforce those key concepts. So the unit review sheet is located in the front of the books, or if you're using the online curriculum, on the table of contents page. The materials list for each lesson is also summarized for each unit. This enables parents to plan ahead and gather all of the materials that are needed for each 3-week unit ahead of time. A good practice that a lot of parents use here is when they start a unit, they're about 3 weeks long, and so they will just gather any materials that are needed, put them in a box, and that way they're always just right there ready to go. The reading and questions activity is not always the first activity of the day, but in language arts, it's fairly common. Questions, like I said before, are a mix of recall and also some that come from the text as higher level questions to stimulate thinking and critical examination of the text and characters. Most of the time, these questions are to be written down, and we provide sheets in the books or that can be printed out that students so they can write those out. They can also enter them online as well. The activities, after they finish the reading and questions, the activities are what make up the meat of the Beyond the Page lesson. In this first activities, the student is going to write and illustrate a chapter summary in his journal. And there's a reminder here also to use transition words, because something that we've been working with them on in previous lessons. The second activity is a word choice activity, where students read 2 different paragraphs that mean the same thing, but one uses words that make it more interesting. So students can see how a great author uses words, and then they can try it out for themselves. You can see in this case, we actually take a paragraph from the book that the author wrote, and then we write a couple of sentences, a smaller paragraph that actually says the exact same thing, but just isn't nearly as compelling. So really give kids a good example of what that looks like. For the final activity of the day, students are going to write their very first paragraph, and we provide a rubric for parents to use. They know how to look for transition and interesting words throughout the writing. And you can also see that we provide compelling graphic organizers for students to organize and structure their ideas. This activity is differentiated based on ability. So students that already have experience writing a paragraph can use the page that doesn't provide as much structure. But if you need that extra structure, we have that there as well. Each of our literature units does contain one major writing assignment and then a number of smaller daily assignments. In the early levels, this may just be a sentence or a paragraph, but by the upper elementary, students are spending multiple days writing complete essays. And that includes the entire writing process. So writing, revision, all of that. Beginning in the age 9 to 11 level, again, this is usually like the 5th grade, the curriculum is written to be student directed. And this format has serious benefits for both students and parents. For students, it's a great way to instill a sense of independence in upper elementary children. My daughter Piper is very, she's very conscientious. She's 13 now. We did this level with her 3 or 4 years ago. But she knew that once she finished her lessons that she would be free for the day. And so she would start on her student directed lessons even before her mom got out of bed. Your results may vary. None of our other kids ever did that, but we did have one, and it was really nice. For parents, student directed curriculum does free up valuable time. So if you have younger children, you can spend more time in the intensive instruction that they need at that younger level. Few important notes about student directed curriculum. Even though the lessons are student directed, we do not believe that any student can work through these lessons on their own with no parental involvement. We assume that there is a parent that is both present and available for questions and help the whole time, and will often actually tell students to go ask your parents to either ask your parents this question or ask your parents for their help in doing this type of thing. This example that we're going to look at is from a literature unit that utilizes the book called The Key. And in this book, an old man and a cat find themselves marooned on the island of Curacao in the Caribbean Sea after a shipwreck. A quick note about some of the images that we put in here. We did use AI to create a lot of these images, and so if you actually look at the guy has 6 toes, so it's I'll point out a few more. There's been a few in here already where there's been some little funny mistakes in the images, but the yeah, I'll point a few more out that are a little bit humorous. I'm not going to go into as much detail describing this lesson as I did the previous one, but you should notice right away that we do use a much larger font and simpler vocabulary in our student-directed units. We want a fifth grader to be able to sit down with this lesson and just begin working through it independently. The lesson starts with the introduction, the materials list, the big ideas, and the things to know. Like the younger level we just looked at, this lesson also begins with a reading and questions. The first activity in this lesson is on subject-verb agreement. And in this activity, you'll see that we use sentences from the book for the student to look at. And we also ask students to get help from their parents when deciding which option to use. This activity is differentiated based on ability. And we want parents to help make this choice. So some of our activities are differentiated based on interest, and we give students more of a voice in that decision. My son Jaden, who I mentioned earlier, when given a choice, he would always choose the activity that he thought was the easiest every single time. Like he just looked at it, no matter what it was, he just chose the one that was either the easiest or that had the least amount of writing. And so sometimes, as parents, we do have to overrule our kids' choices, but it's nice to give them the choice to make a decision based on something that they're interested in as well. In the book, there's a shark attack at one point, and it serves as a pivotal turning point in the story. And to prepare for this, we introduce students to a shark identification activity. Sometimes you're going to see throughout Beyond the Page that we use an interdisciplinary approach to learning. And we look for opportunities to break down walls between subjects whenever possible. And this is an example of that. Or actually, here's a different example of that. Recently, there was a school that contacted us. They wanted us to provide them with a list of the lessons where we taught the scientific method. And the final list that we ended up providing them included a number of science lessons, as you can imagine, but there were also a number of language arts lessons that were on that list where we explicitly taught the scientific method in language arts. So if there's a good opportunity for interdisciplinary learning, we run with it. In this case, we also have a second goal, and that is to help students to develop their research skills. Students are going to choose one of the sharks from the previous activity and practice their research skills, synthesizing and categorizing the information. Every lesson includes a parent overview section in the back of the book. And these parent overviews provide descriptions of each activity, answer keys, and questions for further discussion. Now we're going to change pace a little bit and talk about how we teach children to read. And I'll start with this. Teaching children to read is not easy, and it never has been. The alphabet is a hodgepodge of letters that make the same sounds, and a bunch of sounds that you can actually spell in different ways. In 1768, Benjamin Franklin actually saw this same problem, and he proposed an entirely new alphabet that would have made learning much simpler. He dropped a lot of what he deemed as unnecessary letters like C, J, and Q, and he introduced a few more that made other distinctive sounds. His plan to make learning to read simpler was never adopted, however, and so for most students, learning to read is just going to be hard. Beyond the Page reading is a 2-year program, and it's designed to take readers who know the letters and their sounds. And over the course of 2 years, we're going to prepare them to read simple chapter books at a late second grade reading level. These two levels line up nicely with our age 5 to 7 and our age 6 to 8 programs, but they can also be introduced earlier in the age 4 to 5 level if a student is ready for it. Our program is designed around the principles outlined in the science of reading. We focus on 3 main areas. These are phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency. Parents often confuse phonemic awareness and phonics, but they're actually they're very different skills. Phonics is related to letters and their sounds, but phonemic awareness does not require an understanding of letters at all. Instead, it's simply understanding and recognizing that manipulating small units of sound can make up words. So the skills that we work on in this area are primarily blending and segmenting. We have daily activities and word building cards designed specifically to enhance phonemic awareness. Phonics, on the other hand, is the systematic study. There yet. Phonics is the systematic study of letters and sounds they represent. On the surface, this seems straightforward, but as I mentioned earlier, it can be anything but. So you can take like the long A sound can be spelled in like 5 or 6 different ways. So you've got, like just an A as an acorn, you have an A consonant E, you can have AI, AY, EY, like hey, or EA and great. So all these different ways to spell the same sound. And it gets even more challenging for students than it initially seems because sometimes the same letter combinations make different sounds. So if you look at the word great, it uses EA to make the A sound, but EA can also make the long E sound like peach, or it can make the short E sound as in head. So the phonics is tough. Um, the final principle is going to be fluency, and this is the ability to read with speed, accuracy, and proper expression. And the idea here is that a student that can read with speed and accuracy will have a much better understanding of what they're reading. And so once children have learned how to decode words with phonics, then we help them to recognize whole words by sight without sounding them out. So on average, students need to see a word between 4 and 14 times before it can become a sight word that they automatically recognize. And some children, like those with dyslexia, may even need to see it up to 40 times or more before they can recognize the sight word. I'm going to take a quick run through of the 5 to 7 level as an example, so you can see what's included in one of our reading programs. The age 6 to 8 level is the second year in the reading program is similar, but more advanced. So this year consists of 34 lessons. And as you can see in the table of contents, most of these lessons introduce students to a specific sound, and students learn how different combinations of letter combine to make these sounds. Each of the 34 lessons is divided up into 5 30-minute daily sub-lessons. And that might sound complicated, but it's pretty easy to use. You just open up to day 1, lesson 1, and just do each lesson in order. The curriculum package includes 2 parent manuals and 2 student activity books. The parent manuals include step-by-step instructions for completing each daily lesson. And they outline your week. They walk you through the activity. You just begin with lesson 1, complete each lesson in order. Learning to read involves developing many new skills and gaining a lot of new knowledge. And so both of these take practice. And our student activity pages help to provide that practice. So we aim to make our student activity pages attractive and engaging. And your child is going to work on word families, writing letters and words, sorting items by vowel sounds, practicing sight words, rhyming words, much more. So there's 1 parent manual and 1 student activity book for each semester. The package also includes 31 weekly readers. that all have very colorful illustrations, relatable characters, and engaging text. As students are learning to read, having these pictures and context clues can be really helpful. Students read and reread these picture books, and new words become more ingrained, and it really helps to build that fluency as they go through these. Every week, your child will also receive a weekly message. We heard from a family this year that calls this mouse mail because of our little mouse picture up there. But these weekly messages, they serve multiple purposes. They model how we read from left to right and top to bottom. They're going to expose your child to high frequency words that will become part of their sight word collection. And they also introduce new vocabulary as well. Each week, families start off with a weekly message, and your child will use this message to complete activities that teach and reinforce new reading skills and content. We also include 114 sight word cards that help children develop reading fluency. In order to read with speed and accuracy, students must move beyond decoding and recognizing whole words as soon as they see them. And these sight words are one tool that your student will use to build that foundation of sight words. Letter cards are included and used for a variety of activities, such as learning sounds, practicing blends, and building words. The word building cards, there's 112 word building cards, and these are included to reinforce word families, digraphs, and blending, segmenting, and then sentence building cards as well. So we have 117 word cards that are used to build sentences together. Finally, the kit does include handwriting paper, laminated writing sheet, dry erase markers, highlighters, a lot of other stuff. So my daughter is actually my daughter Piper was obsessed with the highlighters. I think that was her favorite part of the entire kit was the highlighters. I'll do a real quick run through of what a lesson looks like. This is lesson 7 from semester 1, so we're about 2 months into the program. And you can see that we introduce by outlining the weekly focus. In this case, we're going to be learning about 4 different consonant digraphs. We identify the sight words, we have the weekly message, the materials list, and then we just jump into the activities. And the structure of the curriculum, even though the activities themselves are very, very different, the structure of the curriculum across all of our levels will be familiar to you once you get used to those. 3 times a week, students will be asked to take a short online quiz to introduce new questions. And there's always going to be a few review questions in there as well. We don't introduce any new content in these quizzes. These are used for review and reinforcement. Questions that students struggle with will be asked more often as the year goes on. And if there's anything student repeatedly misses, parents will get an email letting them know that more attention is needed there. And I'm going to have to go through these next sections pretty quick because I think we are getting a little short on time. But I want to go through real quick and talk about our approach to writing. One of the primary goals of our language arts program is to develop better writers. A while back, I came across a review of Beyond the Page online, and it was a great example of how our approach to writing and grammar is quite different than what some parents are expecting. The review was of our language arts program, and it was generally very positive. The mom and her daughters, they enjoyed the novels and the activities, and they appreciated that we encouraged critical thinking skills. And then she described her complaint. She said there's too much writing and not enough grammar reinforcement. And she went on to explain that she allowed her children to dictate the writing assignments and that she supplemented with grammar worksheets. But what the research shows, however, is that the writing assignment she skipped would have been a more effective tool for reinforcing grammar instruction than the worksheets that she replaced them with. Many homeschool children are ahead academically in many subject areas, but we have found many examples of students who do lag behind their traditionally schooled counterparts in the area of writing. And there's many homeschool parents that we've talked to personally that have put their children back into a traditional school only to find their bright son or daughter going to remedial writing classes. So we believe that writing must be a part of the daily routine for every student. But there's a problem, and that problem is that children don't generally like to write. At least most children don't. And what's more is they know how to communicate that dislike to their parents in ways that are quite convincing. Many homeschool parents will acquiesce to their children's complaints and allow them to dictate assignments. But that's something that wouldn't fly in a traditional classroom environment, and but we do think it oftentimes carries the day with homeschoolers. Um, Dictating a writing assignment is similar to using a calculator in math. You can get the answer and you can finish it more quickly, but you won't have gained the skills needed to solve the problems independently. We believe that writing is the work through which students learn proper punctuation and grammar. It's the work through which they learn and practice word choice and revision. It is the work that builds the skills that they need. Our approach to building great writers starts with reading. So we expect kids to read a lot. So if you've heard a toddler sitting down and saying, "I eat it all my dinner," that's sort of the child's brain naturally absorbing a grammar rule and applying it. Past tense words into with ed. So I eat it all my dinner. Later, just through hearing it over and over again, they will internalize that eat is actually an exception to the rule, and they should say, "I ate all my dinner." And that's sort of the same idea behind reading a lot, is you internalize a lot of these grammar rules as you read them because you see them correctly over and over and over again. Writing and revision is not just a way to hone content and word choice, it's also a way to reinforce these grammar concepts. So once a grammar topic has been covered, parents will help children catch related mistakes in their formal writing assignments from that point forward. And when a child makes a grammatical mistake, they're going to stop and review the rules and provide some practice sentences before moving on. The research shows that this is a much more effective strategy than even using something like grammar worksheets to reinforce grammar. We also want children to have the opportunity to write letters and improve their own penmanship, but also to practice the art of writing. So there's very different skills. Copy work and practicing letters can help with handwriting skills, but creative and open-ended writing allows children to practice the art of writing while also providing that same practice as well. A real quick run through on writing through the years. So in the early years, kids are learning to write letters and words. Then they move up to writing simple sentences with proper punctuation, and then multiple sentences on a topic. Middle elementary, we're writing paragraphs and then multiple paragraphs, and then late elementary and on, students are moving into writing comprehensive essays. And we have, every 3 to 4 weeks throughout the year, they have one of these major writing assignments where they have to create one of these products. I'm just going to go real fast through spelling because I think we are way over time here. But our online spelling program is designed to very quickly provide a way to focus kids on the words that they really need to know how to spell. So instead of just 10 words, if a student already knows how to spell 8 of them, then they're going to spend just as much time on all of those words. And what we want to do is narrow this down through these quizzes. Is we narrow it down, we find out which words kids don't know how to spell, and then we reinforce those all year long. So by the end of the year, they will still know how to spell all of the words that they learned to spell throughout the year. And we also provide parents with spelling rules that they can use to help teach their children those when they miss words. We introduce these spelling words to teach them how they can use the spelling rules to spell correctly in the future. Through the different age levels, we start off, we have a theme of the most common words in the English language. We want those most common words to be the ones that students definitely spell correctly. And so we make that the core of our spelling curriculum and introduce each words, like in the age 7 to 9, we include challenge words. 8 to 10, we have spelling patterns. Then we introduce homonyms and contractions in 9 to 11. And then 10 to 12 is commonly misspelled and bonus words. I'm going to go past choosing an age level because most of you will be working with your teacher on those. And then just let you know a few things that we do provide as well for parents and teachers. One is online access to the curriculum, and this is available whether you're a parent or a teacher. If you're a parent, we provide online access to the hard copy books that you will receive, so your child will be working in the book, and you can access it on your phone or on a tablet or computer. You can have access to the curriculum as well, and your teacher, when they follow up with the students, can also have access to the curriculum, so they can go through and provide better feedback for your students as well as they look at their work products. We also provide a portfolio where you can keep track of your work. You can just snap a quick picture and store it, and we have that, and then you can download it as a PDF at the end of the year that has all of the work that your child did through the year. And then I think you guys have schedules already nailed there at Vision, so I think that's going to be fine to gloss over. Okay, I'm only a little bit late, maybe. Sorry about that.
It is okay. Thank you so much for presenting. And families, we have some time for Q&A, so we're just going to close out the recording by saying thank you for joining us asynchronously if you're in the recording, and we hope to see you in the next session. And we are